Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Gaming. A new patch is coming to Battlefield V next week. Early patch notes have been released by DICE. They're still working on the patch, so they might change by release. The netcode patch we've been waiting for is finally on its way. It should improve the consistency of the time to kill and time to death experiences across the board. A big component of the fix is the number of damage updates delivered per packet. This means high rate of fire weapons and shotguns shouldn't be killing you instantly or without any indication that you're getting hit. The frag grenade launcher is getting a huge change in the way it behaves. Nades launched from it now bounce once within a certain radius. They still hit for 30 damage on direct impact, but will bounce off of walls and even enemies. This should cut down on people spamming them in close quarters, but also opens up using them in more creative ways, like bouncing them around corners or into buildings. Semi-auto rifles are getting a pretty universal nerf to their 2-hit kill potential against injured targets or when landing headshots. This means that they should still be getting those quick 3-shot kills, but you'll need to land 2 headshots to drop enemies in 2 hits. Right now, a headshot and body shot will typically kill enemies in medium range. The change shouldn't feel too dramatic, but it could shake up the meta a little bit. The Flak Panzer's default 4-barrel gun was bugged by the last update, causing it to do way more damage than intended to planes. This has been fixed with the upcoming patch. Some tweaks are being made to most of the tanks. For the most part, they all seem like a minor buff designed to improve their survivability and damage output. Placing spawn beacons has been improved so that they actually deploy when the indicator says they can. Vaulting is getting further refinements. Currently, some specific areas break the camera when vaulting or require multiple attempts to vault successfully. The improvements look pretty solid overall. And finally, many minor tweaks and fixes for exploits are being made to Fjell, Devastation, Panzerstorm, Aerodrome, and Rotterdam. These are mostly to prevent players from reaching unintended areas, which was especially bad on Fjell. The Combined Arms co-op mode is also launching next week. It'll include missions on Eros, Rotterdam, Hamada, and Twisted Steel. Not much has been said about what the mode actually offers in terms of gameplay, but we do know it's limited to 4 players and features AI enemies. It's likely going to be similar to the co-op mode in Battlefield 3. In our final bit of Battlefield V news, according to a recent investor call, the game failed to meet sales expectations at launch. Big surprise. While Battlefield V did move over 7 million units in its first quarter of release, that was about 1 million shy of EA's estimate. EA pinned the blame on the game's disastrous initial reveal, lack of features to compete with other popular titles like Battle Royale mode, a focus on single-player content that forced DICE to neglect development progress for multiplayer, and a general lack of vision for the game's marketing. Going forward, EA are putting measures in place to nail down pre-release marketing to more clearly communicate what players can expect out of an upcoming game. Despite the somewhat soft language EA used on the call, it's pretty clear they understand the mistakes they made with Battlefield V. That said, it's not all doom and gloom. 7 million units sold in 1 quarter is nothing to sneeze at. It's actually better than Battlefield 4's sales in that same time frame. Battlefield 1 will likely remain as the best-selling entry in the franchise for years to come. It's also important to keep in mind that Battlefield 1 was also heavily promoted as a launch title for the Xbox One X. Getting to launch a game alongside a new console, even if it's a mid-generation update, is still a massive sales advantage. Apex Legends released to widespread praise and critical acclaim out of nowhere this week, and it's only gotten more popular since then. In 72 hours, it reached 10 million total players, with more than 1 million concurrent peak players, and is still going up. By comparison, PUBG took 6 months to reach those numbers, and Fortnite took 2 weeks. Apex might have the benefit of a multi-platform launch and also being free to play, but it also had essentially zero pre-release marketing. Its success is well deserved though. It lives up to the hype in many ways and has likely set the bar for the Battle Royale genre. If you want my thoughts, be sure to check out my initial impressions review. Also, the Year 1 roadmap for Apex was released as part of the reveal trailer. It includes 4 seasons of content, each with its own paid battle pass. New legends, weapons, and loot will be added each season. Respawn are also working on more games set in the Titanfall universe. They confirmed following Apex's release that Titanfall 3 wasn't in active development, but the studio had stated on Twitter more premium Titanfall will launch later this year. This could mean another paid title in a similar vein to Apex, something set in the Titanfall universe that isn't specifically Titanfall. It could also mean a big expansion of Titanfall 2. At this point, all we do know is that Respawn are working on multiple game franchises, including both Titanfall and Star Wars. Their upcoming game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, is set to release this autumn. Aside from being an action-adventure game set after Revenge of the Sith, little is actually known about it. BioWare is expecting Anthem to sell big. EA anticipates sales in excess of 5 million units by March. The game's recent demos hammered its servers so hard, many servers, including other games on the Origin network, went down. So if anything, Anthem has proven people are at least interested in it. The demo left a lot to be desired though, both in terms of content and performance. It's hard to get an accurate sense of what Anthem will really offer at launch, especially when it comes to endgame content. Looter shooters like Anthem, Destiny, and The Division all have most of the gameplay experience rooted in endgame, and so far both Destiny and The Division have struggled to keep players interested at launch. Their respective DLCs certainly help though. In Anthem's case, players will unlock 3 higher tiers of difficulty after playing through the main story. Each tier of difficulty increases the drop chances of high-end loot. Players that reach level 30 will get access to high-level weapons and the ability upgrades. As far as missions go, the endgame content of Anthem will include multi-part side quests at increased difficulty levels, stronghold raids, and free play. Post-launch expansions to the game will be released that add more cosmetic content and new missions, as well as bigger changes to the game world. Post-launch, expansions to the game will be revealed that add more cosmetic content and new missions, as well as bigger changes to the game's world, called Cataclysms. These are limited time events with things like tougher bosses, extreme weather, and changes to existing areas. Basically, it sounds like the bulk of Anthem's endgame content, like most games in the genre, will come as DLC in the future. Whether or not the core game has enough content to last that long remains to be seen. Metro Exodus's recent controversy regarding its unexpected move exclusively to the Epic Store on PC continued this week. A developer at the game studio, 4A Games, took to an online forum and social media saying people were using the move as an excuse to pour out their bile. They also suggested future titles wouldn't come to PC if this kind of behavior continued. Thankfully, the game's publisher released a statement saying they have every intention of continuing this franchise, and a PC version will always be at the heart of our players. That's all well and good, but if future titles are also exclusive to the Epic Store, it still forces customers into using a service they might otherwise not want to use. The whole situation isn't particularly good for anyone involved. The game's publisher is doing what they think is best for its success, and the customers just want the range of options they're used to when it comes to buying PC titles. The exclusive deal is supposedly only going to last for 1 year, but that's 1 year that many frustrated customers won't be buying or playing the game. Crytek's Warface team are splitting off to form their own studio, and they're taking the game with them. They've established a new independent studio called Blackwood Games, and Crytek have essentially handed over control of Warface to them. The game currently boasts a total player count of 65 million. AMD's latest GPU, the Radeon VII, has hit store shelves. Benchmarks reveal it's on par with Nvidia's RTX 2080. Both GPUs are priced at $700. What the Radeon VII lacks in ray tracing features, it makes up for by having double the VRAM, 16GB versus the 2080's 8, and 1GB per second max memory bandwidth. That doesn't mean a whole lot for gaming, but when it comes to productivity workloads like video editing or CGI, it makes a night and day difference. It's basically the most and fastest VRAM of any consumer-grade graphics card on the market. Video editors in particular that work with 4K content should seriously look into Radeon VII's benchmarks. It's one of the few GPUs with the hardware to handle that workload under $1,000. Indie shooter Amid Evil's latest early access update is a big one. It has the game's 6th episode, which takes players to a level called the Arcane Expanse. The game is a sort of spiritual successor to Hexen and Heretic. It's also 15% off on Steam right now. In our final story this week, Pennsylvania lawmakers have proposed a bill that would tax violent video games. The 10% tax would fund security measures for schools to prevent school shootings. This is on top of the state's 8% sales tax, effectively creating a double tax on games deemed violent by the bill. And while it might seem a bit far-fetched, Pennsylvania's largest city, Philadelphia, recently passed a soda tax on sugary beverages. It's also a double tax and is supposed to help fund the city's school district. The tax is only 1.5%, but it caused a 55% decrease in purchases of taxed items in the city. Outside the city, sales rose by 38%. Because of this, the soda tax only generated $39.7 million, 50% less than the expected $46 million. If the violent video game tax is passed, it could have devastating consequences for retail stores throughout the state. Many retailers rely on big-ticket games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Grand Theft Auto, and other mature-rated games to bring in the bulk of their sales. If customers stop coming to these stores because of the tax, there's no telling how bad it could be for the affected businesses. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.